Thank you very much. I would like to say, following your intervention, that when I started working in Nigeria in 2011, first time I came in, I love the country. 2 years later, they offered me to open the office of Bain and Company in Nigeria. I accepted. But one of the conditions was to build up a local office with Nigerians. And so today we have something like 35 people in the office, and 32 of them are Nigerians. Not only the drivers, the assistant, but most of the staff, only the 3 more senior people are not Nigerian. Hopefully one day we're going to replace them with native Nigerians. All these guys come from MIT, Harvard, Stanford, INSEAD. They've been studying in Nigeria, some of them abroad, but then they all went to the biggest school with highest rating, and I can guarantee you my guys here in Nigeria are as good as my colleagues in London, in New York, or in San Francisco. And this means that there is talent in this country, on this continent. We need to grow in the best way possible. So my intervention will be about what is required to build up an ecosystem to approach the digital transformation. And as you can imagine today, the world is in full revolution. Nigeria also is changing, maybe slowly, but changing. And with time, we will need the same skills if we want to stay on course with the rest of the world. So I will just start by giving you a definition of digital, because sometimes we tend to really look at digital in a very narrow way. But digital is a very wide topic. I think when we talk about digital, we talk about 3 main topics. The first one is data. Digital is all about data. Whatever you do in digital, it will rely on data. It will create new data. It will analyze whatever you do every day based on the data you create. It will simplify and disrupt the ways of working. So if you think about digital today, it's everywhere, in whatever you do. You go to a bank, most of the processes now relate to digital. You got on an airplane, most of the time you booked your ticket through an online system. But even if you think about oil, which is pretty big in Nigeria, or agriculture, which is tomorrow one of the areas where we want to diversify, well, digital is key. On oil and gas, you can track what's happening on the field, on the machineries. In agriculture, you can use an SMS to send message to the farmers to say it's time to put the seed in the field, because this is now that you need to do it. So it's everywhere. And here you have all the big names we've been using up to now. We speak about blockchain, we speak about big data, digital engineering, artificial intelligence, and so on and so forth. I think we can move to the next slides. You can follow me, page 3. Thank you. And if you think about digital is seen as what we're going to call, in my jargon, a digital enabler. Next page, please. Next one. Thank you. Next, also. Okay. And digital enablers will allow you, if you are a private company, to do 3 things. One is to protect and strengthen your core, meaning that it will drive your operations full potential. It will do better your work. It will help you to build up a second engine. It gives you new opportunity of business that you don't have today, and it will help you to embed innovation capabilities. So these are very theoretical jargon terms, but if you think about companies like Safaricom, with our cousins in Kenya, these guys did that since day one, and they started 10 years ago this journey. When we speak about strengthening their core activities, well, they built up a digital city. So today they have a place which is a headquarters where digital is everywhere in what they do. Don't think about Apple or Facebook in the Silicon Valley. You have this also in Africa, in Kenya, not too far from here. They built up a second engine, M-Pesa, which is probably the most effective and famous mobile money system in the world, where basically today they are the biggest bank in Kenya. And finally, they build up capabilities by having a digital lab internally. So they use innovation and they force their people to use digital as a way of changing the way they do the business. Next page, please. As I was saying before, no industry is immune. Everybody has been touched or will be touched very soon. You have industries where it is everyday business. I come from the TMT space, telecommunication, media, high tech. I used to work in the music industry. at EMI when Apple and iTunes started the business, and we saw the business changing totally. I used to work for the pay media industry with Murdoch at Sky, and we slowly moved from having a dish and a satellite to offer everything through an iPad. And this is what you saw, like I saw with the time in the last 10 years. But if you think also about, as I said before, construction, mining, oil and gas, utilities, pharma, the industry that stay at the bottom of the curve, this industry in 10, 15 years' time will be fully disrupted also by digital. And we need to get prepared also in these industries to build up the skills. So if we get into, next page, into Nigeria more specifically, and the context we have today in Nigeria. Can we move this page, please? Sorry? Thank you. So Nigeria set very, very challenging objectives, and the government in the last few months edited the EGRP, which is basically the plan for Nigeria for the next 4 years. Next page, please. Next one. Thank you. And if you read through this document, ECT and digital is a little bit everywhere, because the government understood that this is key for the growth of the country, not only to enable the economy, but also to skill up the population of Nigeria. And there is a clear reference in building up an ecosystem. Because as the previous speaker said, it's useless to speak about digital if we don't speak about an ecosystem, meaning that we not only need to build up the skills, which is already a pretty complicated exercise, and I think I like the Korea example, and I like what Lagos State is doing in building up the skills, but if you have nobody on the other side, if you don't have the industry, if you don't have the banks, if you don't have the manufacturing company, if you don't have the telecommunication company that offer job to these people, then there is no match between what education systems are trying to do. And next page, please. If we look at the impact of digital in Nigeria, today we are pretty far away of the numbers we have in the US. So if you look at US, if you look at UK, if you look at China, today digital directly generates between 5 and 8% of the GDP, which is a huge number because it's similar to the role of a big industry. And if you look to Nigeria today, probably we are in a range of 2 to 3%, which is very low compared to the advanced economies. So it means that we have a long way to go to improve on this side. It's also an issue of geographies. Most of this happen in Lagos, because this is where most of the business is, but progressively also growing in other places. With digital, you could be everywhere in the world. It's a question of connectivity. So when we go to the enablers, and in the next page you will see a few numbers, well, we did as a country a pretty good exercise in the last 10 years to try to grow the basic enablers that allow everybody in this room to access to digital. And you think about the penetration of feature phones, the first USSD, which was the first digital experience in the country. Now, mostly 80% of population has this kind of phones. Today, 30 to 40% of population got a smartphone. So you can do everything now. You can go on your account online with your bank. You can make any kind of transaction. Mobile penetration is up to 30%, 40%. Broadband penetration increased and is around 20% in the whole country, with strong concentration on the big urban areas, and price of data went down. So the ecosystem is starting getting up, but still Nigeria, and see what we saw in the following page, has a long way to go. So if you look to this data, you will see that Nigeria is still in the back of the queue when it comes to what we call policies and digital readiness. And so we are still pretty low when it comes to diversification. A reason why digital is not so strong in Nigeria is because we are an oil and gas country, and we mostly focus on oil and gas. Agric is growing, mining is growing, manufacturing is growing, telecom is growing, but still oil is one of the biggest reasons why we are here. And so there is not really the diversification of the economy that allows this jump into digital skills. If you think about favorable regulation for development of ECT, well, still again, we are a little bit in the back compared to other countries, and incidents like the MTN incidents putting aside the political considerations, doesn't attract investors to come to Nigeria and to put money on this economy. A viability of ICT technology is also pretty low. We are very far away compared to other countries. However, we are better than Kenya and Ethiopia, but still, with the little they have, they do better than what we do today in Nigeria. And finally, when it comes to training and to education, going back to your points, ladies, we are far away. We are far away from all this. And one of the key reasons, I agree with you, is that we don't have the data. We don't know what we need. We can imagine what we need, but we don't know exactly what we need, which doesn't help universities to build up programs, schools to build up programs to train our younger people. If we go to the next page, I think what is very important when we think about ecosystem and a digital ecosystem is to build up what we call this net of activities. And as you can see, it goes through a lot of different things. It's not only the startups that everybody speaks about. When we think about digital value, you say, well, the startups did everything. No, around the startups, you have everything that is required to help them grow. You have the VC and the incubators, the private equity companies, who bring the capital and invest and trust the company to be successful. You have the third-party developers, so people that help and bring competencies in developing software. You have tech companies that allow and build up the infrastructures. You have academics. You have a place where you can learn these things. You have the suppliers, and you have an ease of accessing the technologies by them, which is not always easy in Nigeria when you think about the customs issue you may get. And finally, you have the consumers, so the people that are happy to use the new services you're offering. So how can we try to build up a systematic approach and to increase the digital environment in Nigeria? If we go to the next page, I think we can look to a couple of interesting data about India. So we spoke about Korea that did a lot in building up skills, specifically in the, let me say, end skills. And so people being able to effectively build up things. If we think about India, India has been probably the most interesting case in terms of developing digital skills. Back in the 60s, 70s, and 80s, they started building up giant of information technology. So people like Tata, Infosys, Wipro started 30, 40, 45 years ago. And progressively, the government realized this was an area where India will invest a lot. India will be relevant in the global economy. In 1985, so before all the e-commerce bubble at the end of the 80s, where they started writing policies and they started training in a consistent way their people. They have invested in education, they have invested in what they call Digital India, which is a plan they've been updating in the last 15 years to make sure people get the right skills. And finally, they created special economic zone and tech parks where the ecosystem I was talking about before is very active, allowing this company to be successful, attracting the right people, but also speaking to the right consumers. In the following page, I wanted to share with you a few pictures. These are all Nigerians. These are all native Nigerians. They work in Nigeria, but they also work outside. Zuckerberg was in the country a few months ago. He referred to a couple of Nigerian fellows who are top managers into Facebook. If you go to Google, if you go to these big giants, there are hundreds of Nigerians working today. If you look to Nigeria, you have a lot of people in Nigeria trying to disrupt. And so this makes me believe that there is the raw material, there is the talent we need to put the seed and see it growing. What is really important, I believe, is the capacity we will have to, and this next page, and connecting to your point, to focus on the right topics when it comes to education. And so STEM is typically what you need to look at. And it's important that if we want to be a digital country, we beef up our programs on the STEM topics. And if you speak today with software companies, with digital companies, they will tell you we struggle to find talents in this country which are already properly trained. They went to school, they have a degree in mathematics, a degree in physics, a degree on whatever you want, but they don't know what they talk about when they come to digital. And so they've been 3 years, 4 years, 5 years at university. They don't have the technical training that will allow us to bring them into the bank, into the telecommunication company, and effectively already work in this technology. So it's a very call for action for the government and for the education system to work on this. Finally, with my last slide, I think it's important that we do 4 things, and these 4 things are followed by everybody. When I say everybody, I speak about the policymakers, our government. I speak about the corporate, but also the SMEs, because small and medium enterprise are very, very important in the digital world. And finally, citizens, because all of them play a very important role. And I think there are 4 things we need to do. The first one is to have a clear digital agenda. Today's digital agenda, it's a wish list in the plan of the country, but it's not detailed enough. It's not clearly, and you were referring to that before, there's not clearly a plan that tells you why we want to do that, in how much time we want to do that, and what will be the output of this plan. I think there is a strong focus to put on what education is delivering, because clearly we can claim we are bringing the right skills on the country. If they don't speak to the needs of the companies, then everything will be lost. So it's important we really invest a lot in making sure that education delivers, and we create 1, 2, 3, 4 strong curriculum universities where our people can be trained. This helps to build up the digital workforce. We are working with a couple of our clients on digital labs initiatives because they are fed up of calling Americans, French, Brits to come to, or Italians, to come to Nigeria and to try to help them at crazy prices to build up their digital activities. We need to be able to really, with the support of the education system, build up the right skills and build up an active workforce on digital. And finally, embrace digital transformation. I think it's also something we must all push as consumers. It starts with you, it starts with us, to be able to start doing stuff only online. And so I buy my ticket online, I start to order online. Instead of queuing 5 hours at the bank to try to get something on my bank account, well, I ask my bank to be able to do it online. And if we start pushing this, well, the banks, the industries will understand the value of doing that. Thank you very much.